and then it clicked. I realised that the whole chain of synchronicity had occurred to make me look at my mother's name in numerological anagram form. Now, when I did it, straight away I found this. Which I realised was telling me that I had been led to a sealed code. Now, when I looked at these two letters, I noticed that this one is the number 2 and this one is number 5. Together they add up to the number 7. So I realised then that my mother's maiden name is a little code that says 7 seal, and I already knew that the breaking of the 7th seal is prophesied in the book of Revelation in the Bible. Now, the next thing that I found when I looked at it is that Blease says sea bell. Now, the significance of that, in my mind at least, was related to my prediction of the happening of the Oban rock as a warning bell for mankind, because I knew that that rock, or felt that that rock, will arrive in the sea at Oban. But then I noticed that the letters in the word sea also add up to 7. So Blease is a code that says 7 seal and 7 bell. I then compiled all of the different little anagrams of Blease. The ones that I could see were non-randomly formed. All things that had meaning that I could understand. And there weren't very many of them. And when I'd finished it, I'd written them down, and then I realised that my aunt's name was connected to this, because my aunt's name is Isabel Blease. And because Blease means bell, Blease Isabel, it made sense for me to look at Isabel as the next little clue. Now, when I did, I found something that amazed me. Because Isabel says 11 bell, because this is 9, 1 and 1, and it also says 11 seal, because here we have the numbers 2 and 9, which add up to 11, and the word seal. Now, the numbers 7 and 11, as I have previously stated, were the two numbers that had started the whole chain of synchronicity 4 years earlier that had led us to the discovery of this code. Now, when I continued looking at it, I found that Isabel Blease says Blease bi-seal, and I understood that it was telling me that it was a 2-part seal, because bi means 2. So, and then later I discovered this. Doesn't really matter which way you look at it, which way round, Bible seal 7 or Bible 7 seal, and I knew that I'd found confirmation of the fact that I was looking at the actual biblical 7th seal, which was my clue to know that a pre-coded anagram code created by God really exists. After tabulating the anagrams of the word Blease, I then tabulated Isabel, and when the two code sequences were complete, I labelled the seals with an A for Blease, because it was the first seal that I found, and a B for Isabel. When I did that, I didn't realise that there was actually a very important reason for doing so. It happened before I discovered this. Later, when I looked at the anagrams of the words, the whole name Isabel Blease, I found that it says this. It says see label bias. And when I saw that, I realised that I was being shown that there was a reason why Blease had been labelled A and Isabel had been labelled B, because normally Isabel comes before Blease. So, but I didn't know why. The next thing that I found was that it actually identified the labelling that I'd already given to the seals, like this. It says, C label is A, B. So I realised at this point that the whole name Isabel Blease contained instructions that were related to the two seals, the Blease bi-seal. Now, when 9/11 happened, that's when I discovered that Isabel is the code that links to that event. When I looked at Isabel, I noticed also that the first three letters are 911, and it leaves the word bell. Now, bell has always been associated with the warning bell for mankind. Now, because telephone numbers had helped me to discover the Blease seal, I realised I was looking at the American emergency telephone number here, 911. And next to it, when I wrote this anagram out, 911 bell, I wrote a little note saying something to do with an American emergency. I didn't know what it meant, but that's what happened in June 2000. Now, when 9/11 happened, I remembered that, and I looked back at the Blease seals. And when I did, I made a further discovery. 9/11 and bell also say this. The numbers in bell are 2, 5 and 3, and the numbers in the letters WTC, the initials of the World Trade Center, are 5, 2 and 3. So Isabel is actually a little code that says 9/11 World Trade Center. And when the Bali bombing happened, because they were calling it Australia's 9/11, I looked back at the seals to see if they related to the Bali incident. And the first thing that I noticed was that in the Blease seal, you don't have the word Bali. But in the Isabel seal, you do. Now remember, the Isabel seal is the B seal. Now this is how the code proves that God intended to isolate both events, 9/11 and the Bali bombings, in the same seal, the Isabel seal. B seal, C Bali. So the two major negative events that have occurred in this world that have actually turned the world, changed the world, as George Bush puts it, are both coded in the biblical seventh seal and were pre-coded in my aunt's name long before it happened. It was not until those two events occurred that we actually found the connections to them in the Isabel seal. And by that time, I had almost completed the master key of the code, the key that I've been given to be able to prove everything to people by. And what I intend to do now is to explain how I got led to that key. At first, when we discovered the Blease seals, we thought that we had found the entire thing. We thought that we'd found our proof, and we didn't realise that we were going to be led on to a greater code. But the next day, in June 2000, something happened that gave us a clue about where to start looking to find codes that contain greater information. At about 6 or 7 o'clock on the 28th of June, my son Ben came into Rob's house and told us all to go outside to see an amazing thing. Now when we went out into the garden, what we saw was a ring of cloud that completely surrounded Agnes Water, and around the edges of the rim there was lightning happening, but it was very soft and very beautiful. It was flashing in different colours, with no thunder. And as I looked at it, the words St Elmo's fire came to my mind. I didn't think much of it at the time. I didn't realise that I'd been given a clue. But the next morning when I woke up, the words that were on my mind were the words St Elmo's fire, and I realised that I had to look at the anagrams of those words. When I did, I found this. St Elmo's fire is an old saying, and it relates to an electrical phenomenon that sailors used to see around the mastheads of sailing ships, an electromagnetic light effect that has borne that name for many, many years. We're looking here at a well-established set of letters. Now, when I looked at St Elmo's fire, I found Scion master file, and I realised that Anna was telling me that the code I was being led to discover is literally the master file of Scion, the information needed to turn this world around into the paradise world that it really should be. In order to do that, we have to rid the world of corruption, and that means changing the leadership. The next thing that I found in St Elmo's fire is this little anagram here that gave me a clue about the thing that I was being led to discover. We were soon to discover that the name Rose is one of the names that Anna gives to the code, and later we found out that it's the name that Leonardo da Vinci knew the code by. The Rose code has been known to exist for a long time before I was led to it. Having seen this, we began to realise that there were code clues already coded into preset sayings and phrases, things that have been in common usage for a long time. So we started investigating some of the more well-known ones. Now, 6 months later, after spending a long time investigating small keys that sometimes were the names of people that we knew, we had by that time learnt a great deal about the way the code symbols are used and about the meanings of the symbols, the single symbols in the code. For example, the letter T is the symbol for balance, and the letter O is actually the symbol for the code itself. Now, the reason why Anna uses O as the symbol for her code is that O, if you look it up in a dictionary, is a cipher, because it is both a letter and a number. Now, a cipher is a code, and so O symbolises code. We also discovered that a blank space can represent O in Anna's code, because a blank space is 0 and 0 is O. So the code works by logic. It's as simple as that. 6 months after the discovery of the St Elmo's fire key, I was investigating the old saying, "There's no peace for the wicked," and our friend Shirley Cobiella, who had been with us from the very beginning of all of this in 1996, was prompted to look at the saying, "Blood is thicker than water." She had seen it in a newspaper article about George Bush, actually. When she did, she became very excited about what she found, and she brought the key to us. We were back in Cobram in Victoria at this time, living in an old shed. When Shirley brought the "Blood is thicker than water" key over, Elaine started to look at it. The discovery that Elaine made excited all of us, because what she found was that the key related precisely to the events that were happening to us at the time of the discovery of the key by Shirley. Now, Shirley's surname is Cobiella, and as a child everybody called her Kobi, spelt K-O-B-I. It's her nickname.